up, everyone? DSP here. Wrong hat. DSP here with what is probably going to be the last Hateful Truth for 2010, and I don't know, man. I was really hoping it was going to be a good one. This game is one of the most anticipated games of the year. In fact, for me, it was my most anticipated game this year because it was really like the wild card. It was like, it could be really good. It could really turn the tide. It could change common opinion on games made by Disney. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm of course talking about the epic failure, Epic Mickey. Console exclusive for the Wii, and all year we've been hearing about this game. In fact, since last year when it was first announced, we've been hearing all this hype and all these things about the game and how it was going to change platforming, change the way we think about kiddie games like Mickey and stuff like that, that was going to have an adult-oriented storyline and things like that. Yeah. Let me start with the concept of the game, and maybe then you'll kind of understand why I thought this game was going to be good. Concept of the game is that Mickey Mouse accidentally slips into a parallel universe that is basically controlled by the wizard from Fantasia, and not knowing what he's doing, he accidentally spills some paint thinner on this 3D map in front of him, ends up destroying half the map. Come to find out, the map was actually a parallel dimension, and he kills thousands of cartoon characters. Yeah, I'm not kidding. Mickey Mouse commits mass genocide within the first 2 minutes of this game. And so he runs away, and then years later, he gets sucked into this parallel universe, and he finds out that this has happened. He feels awful. He has a magic paintbrush from the wizard, and this paintbrush can use paint to either turn enemies to his side, basically recruiting them to become his friends, or to paint and create things that have been destroyed by paint thinner. Or he can use the paintbrush to use paint thinner to actually tear down walls, destroy objects, and kill enemies permanently. And so there's this whole dichotomy between a good and evil choices in the game, similar to almost like Mass Effect, where you can decide, do you want to really take the good route or the easy way, the more evil route, and just rip everything to shreds. And dependent upon your choices in the game, your character, Mickey, actually changes, meaning he'll get, if you do good things, he'll get higher paint capacity, so he'll have more paint to use before he needs to recharge. If you do things the evil way, you'll have more paint thinner. And so it's a pretty unique concept. It also takes place in this parallel universe where cartoon characters that existed from Disney before Mickey Mouse kind of exist in this parallel dimension, because once Mickey Mouse came out, he became so popular that he became the main character for Disney, and everything else kind of just disappeared. And so there's this interesting elements of older cartoon characters that might have a grudge against Mickey Mouse, Mickey going into this parallel universe with these creation and destruction abilities. This sounds like it might actually be a really good game. And it's not. And here's why. There's a couple things. Here's really what I think happened when they made this game. They had these really intelligent people. They sat down and they brainstormed. They said, how can we make a really unique, epic Mickey game? And they thought up all these great ideas about Oswald the Rabbit, who was the original Disney mascot before Mickey Mouse. And, you know, these older characters, who could we bring back? Who would be, you know, really cool to use in this game? Oh, let's bring back the Phantom Blot, who was a character in a couple of Mickey Mouse cartoons. They brought him back. Now they call him the Shadow Blot. The Mad Doctor from one or two older cartoons. They bring him back as a main villain. It's like, yeah, this is all great ideas, and we want creation with paint and destruction with paint and all that. All right, we've got the idea. Let's give it to our game dev team. And the game dev team basically had about as much talent as I have in my fucking pinky. This game plays like a first-generation Nintendo 64 platformer. It's just that bad. The best part about this game, being completely honest, is the ability to create and destroy with the paint. And when you actually, honestly, the first couple hours of the game, when you first get to the city, and you realize you can tear down a wall and there might be hidden power-ups behind the wall. Or maybe you can create 3 platforms that you couldn't see before with the paint, and you jump across them and you find a cool power-up up there or some money or whatever. You're like, wow, this is pretty cool. And the problem is, it never really evolves from there. Mickey doesn't really get any new abilities. Sure, he gets more paint capacity, more thinner capacity, but all he can do is double jump and do a attack that's a single hit attack when you wiggle the Wiimote. He does get some other power-ups later in the game, but they end up being pretty useless. Like, there's the ability to drop a TV. And yeah, sometimes it'll distract your enemies, but it's not that big of a deal. Sometimes you'll get an anvil, but what you'll find is that most of the times in the game when you need to use the anvil, you don't have it, or you're afraid to use it because there might be a puzzle right around the corner that needs you to use the anvil to solve it. So, yeah, there are power-ups, but they're really limited in their use and they're not very good. So really what you end up doing for most of the game is really bad 3D, semi-3D platforming and just shooting fucking paint everywhere. One major problem is the control, alright? Using the Wiimote, you have to constantly be pointing at the TV. Well, actually, your arm starts to get tired after about an hour pointing at your enemy and trying to shoot the paint at them. Another problem is the camera never agrees with you. The camera, I swear, they really went back and they re-employed the camera from Mario 64. Now, if you were back, a gamer back then like I was, we loved Mario 64 when it came out. We thought it was revolutionary, but the number one complaint about the game was, why can't the damn camera work when we want it to? And the problem with the camera was whenever you would drop into a corner, the camera normally is a behind-the-back camera, but the camera can't sit in the wall. And so the camera would just all the way fly into Mario's body, and you wouldn't be able to see anything. You'd see polygons up the ass. You wouldn't know where you were. You'd get your ass beat. The same problems are in Epic Mickey. It's almost like 10 years of game development never happened. The people who made this game haven't made a game since the 90s, and all those same problems that plagued those early 3D games are in this game, and it's pretty pathetic. And I'm talking about not being able to see where you're supposed to jump, very, very poor game design in the graphical area, meaning about 75% of this game is in the dark, and I'm not exaggerating. You're in a dark cave. You're in, there's a sunset. Oh, there's an eclipse. Oh, you can never fucking see anything. There was actually, I swear to the Lord, there was a part in this game when I spent 15 minutes getting to this ledge up in the future stage. It's like a futuristic area. And I was standing on the ledge, and I couldn't find anything. I said, why the hell am I on this ledge? Why did I spend 15 minutes trying to figure out how to get to this ledge? I don't see nothing. There was a treasure chest sitting in front of me, but because the shading and the lighting was so dark, you couldn't see the chest. And it just so happened I was like running, circling like this, and finally I saw A, which is the button that used to open chests. A appeared on the screen. I said, A, and I pressed it and the chest opened. I said, you gotta be shitting me. Like, why would you have a game with cartoon characters, colorful cartoon characters, all these cartoon areas, but you choose to shade the game so dark? It's awful. It really was. I was so disappointed. And the other thing about that, and of course this is always the trade-off of using a camera, is that because this game is on the Wii, and because the game is so dark, there's no brightness adjustment controls. So I pumped up the brightness on my TV as much as I could, and it still looked like shit when I recorded it. Now, if I used direct capture, that might have solved that, but the fact of the matter is, why is it that Wii games don't have brightness adjustments? It makes no fucking sense. Sure, you might say, oh, well, the Wii is supposed to be a kiddie system, and kids don't care about that. Then why are you promoting games like this that are supposed to be for the hardcore gamer? That's my question. Why are you selling Donkey Kong Country Returns? Why are you selling Metroid Other M? You're saying these are for the hardcore gamer, but then your system doesn't have the graphical capabilities to be able to see anything in the goddamn game. It pisses me off. Just really disappointed. There's a lot of frustrating battles in this game. Like I said, Mickey never really gets powered up ability, so you'll be fighting a tough boss, and you need to hit him. You're hoping that you can maybe get behind him and hit him twice. Nope. Single hit. Then you have to wait. I mean, it's literally, it's the same kind of stuff, like I said, that we put up with in the 90s. It hasn't advanced with the times, and it really feels like an old game that isn't polished and wasn't ready to be released. And now the number one reason that I say that, and the number one thing that supports that statement, is that at the end of this game, alright, what ends up happening, and this will be a little bit of a spoiler, but basically, let's just say the enemies invade, and they take over the whole parallel dimension. And you have to go from town to town, freeing each town. When you do this, the game's frame rate goes from 30 frames per second to probably about 12. And I'm not kidding you. The frame rate, the game slows down to a crawl. You can't tell what's going on. You can barely control Mickey. And what should take 5 minutes takes about 50 minutes to beat because the game engine can't handle what they're trying to push it to do. So, where was the testing? Like, did no one actually test the fucking game? to see if you could do what they wanted to do with those stages? Obviously not. Or if they did, I'm sure the game tester said something, and some asshole who was in charge said, oh, just push it through because we need it out for the holiday season, rather than fixing the problem. So here you are with the game, and by the way, the game is 15 hours long, and normally for a retail purchase, you'd say, I want a game to be 15 hours long. That's great. You know, that's a good value for the dollar. But when you're bored after 2.5 hours, you're not going to care how long the game is. You're going to want the game to end. And that's exactly what happened with me. I was sitting there and I was like, I just want to stop playing. But I want to beat the game because I want to see what the hubbub was about. Maybe there really is a final act that's extremely good. Maybe there is a redeeming quality that I just haven't gotten to yet. And at the same time, I knew this was probably going to be the last major game of the year I was going to play, and I said, I'm going to force myself to finish this game. And that's really what it felt like. I felt like I was force-feeding myself this horrendous, boring shit, and it just wasn't fun. The last act is one of the most tedious, repetitive, annoying, and difficult acts in a game I've ever played in my life. There's no real final boss battle that has any kind of cool ending to it or anything like that, and it's really disappointing. So, I'm sorry. I thought this game was going to be great, but they really went in a different direction. I mean, outdated control scheme, outdated camera, gameplay that gets boring within 3 hours, you know, a graphics engine that can't handle what they're trying to do with the game, too dark of a game design that you can barely see anything, and the one other thing that really is the kicker, after all that, if all that doesn't convince you that this game is bad, okay? The way that Mickey gets between areas in this game is that he goes through teleportation, like there's a dimensional portal that warps him into old school cartoons. And you might say this is cool because, like, for example, one of them is Steamboat Willie, which is one of the classic Mickey cartoons. And you might say, wow, that's really cool that you could actually see those old school cartoons. Little problem. The game requires you to go back and forth between the main city called Mean Street and all these other cities in the game multiple times. I'm not talking 2 or 3, I'm talking 20, 30 times. And every time you do it, you have to replay the same 2D stage again. So imagine if in Super Mario 3, every time that you wanted to go, say, from World 1 to World 5, you had to beat Worlds 2, 3, and 4. There's no fast travel between the two. You can't just walk through the stages. You have to rebeat that stage over and over and over. That's what they did with this game, and that's what I'm saying. What the fuck were they thinking? What development team tested that and said, that sounds like a good idea? Have him replay that same fucking 2D cartoon 47 times in the length of the game. Bullshit. Like, it blows my mind. What were they thinking when they made this game? I can't understand what creative mind who knows video games, who plays video games, would say, that sounds like a good idea. It's pretty obvious the people that made this game didn't know what gamers like, hadn't been around, to see the past 10 years of game development, and they dropped the ball. So, Disney had a great idea, fell flat on their goddamn face by giving the game to the wrong development team. That's a shame, because when you have a game like this that's really original, the concept itself is original, but the execution is so poor, it really kills the game. And now for my rating, I mean, how do you rate a game that, really you didn't enjoy at all? I mean, yeah, there's creative elements in here that are great, so I have to give it some positivity. The fact that you get to play as Mickey in a serious hardcore gamer's game, the fact that it's 15 hours long, the paint, and thinner element is pretty cool. For a couple hours, it really is enjoyable. And there were some original boss battles in the game as well, and I don't want to spoil who they were. Some of them are traditional Disney villains and things like that, and those were pretty good. But outside of maybe like 2 hours worth of gameplay, I hated the other 13 hours. It was just tedious, boring, and frustrating for me to play this game. So, I mean, it's horrible. And I'm actually debating whether or not this is the worst game of the year for me. Just because the other games that were bad this year, at least there wasn't massive anticipation. There wasn't massive hype. It wasn't like people were saying, this could be the best game this year. And I just don't understand. It's blowing my mind. But anyway, Epic Mickey, I've got to be honest, for what it is, for the story, for the actual idea behind it, gets some points. But the execution is horrendous. The people who developed this game should be ashamed of themselves. And I feel so bad. And the truth is this. I feel so bad for the kids who asked for this game for Christmas because they really promoted this game so heavily. You can buy a special Wiimote that looks like the paintbrush. You can buy a Wiimote charger that has the Shadow Blot and Mickey on it. Like, they have all these tie-in accessories for the game, and they're all, to promote the game. And the game sucks. There's going to be poor kids who get up on Christmas morning, play the game for 2 hours, and say, I never want to play this game again. I'm so bored. And on top of that, the game's freaking hard. There's a lot of hard jumps, hard things that you have to do in this game to beat it. And I couldn't imagine, a smaller kid who's looking, oh, Mickey Mouse, I like Mickey Mouse, putting up with that shit. They're going to get frustrated and get disappointed and pissed off on Christmas. So, shame on you, Disney, for putting out this game like this. If you were going to do it, either really take the time and put it in the hands of a developer who knows what they're doing, or just make it easy like the other kiddie games you've put out with Mickey Mouse before. Don't make a hard, difficult, bad game. I can't believe how disappointed kids are going to be on Christmas. So anyway, Epic Mickey, sorry to do this. Fuck you. 3.5. It gets a shitty 3.5. In fact, this game should be called, they should rename it Epic Shitty, because that's exactly what it is. It's blown out of proportion, overhyped shit. And it has a great idea behind it, but it doesn't follow through on it. So, that fucking sucks ass. I'm pissed off that I had to review it like that and be so disappointed. If you really need any evidence, just go watch my playthrough of the game. You'll be flabbergasted at some of the things that they decided to do with this game. There's actually times in the game where the game tells you, do this. And when you do it, it doesn't solve the puzzle. And you're like, why the fuck did the game tell me to do that if that doesn't solve the puzzle and let me progress in the game? It's just awful. Awful, awful. I'm glad I'm getting I get the taste out of my mouth of this horrendous fucking game. I never want to talk about it again. If they make a sequel, they damn well better make sure that it fucking is better than this piece of shit. For me, most disappointing game of the year, Epic Mickey, suck my dick. So this is Darkside Phil, last Hateful Truth of the year, and it ended up being probably the most hateful one of the whole year. Them's the breaks. So yeah, keep in mind, even though the Hateful Truth might be going away for the rest of the year, there's going to be plenty of content with the year-end videos coming up. In fact, some of them should already be coming out today. So keep your eyes open for those. I'm DSP. I'll see you guys later. Don't buy this fucking steaming pile of fucking mouse shit.